Take a deep breath. If you've recently opened your mail to find an IRS penalty notice, I know exactly how your stomach dropped. It is incredibly stressful, it's intimidating, and honestly, it kind of feels like the entire weight of the federal government is suddenly sitting right on your shoulders. But I want you to relax, because in today's explainer, we are going to walk through exactly how to handle this step by step.
Welcome. I absolutely get the anxiety that comes with an IRS letter, but I'm here to assure you that getting a penalty removed isn't some kind of dark magic. It's actually a highly structured, logical, and completely achievable process once you know the rules of the game. And that's exactly what we're going to cover today using the framework from U.S. Tax Penalty Saver. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to tackle this in 6 quick steps. First, we'll meet Form 843. Second, we'll get your exact numbers. Third, we'll pinpoint the 4 essential lines. Fourth, we'll master line 7. Fifth, we'll explore the 4-factor framework. And finally, we'll look at your path to relief.
So, Step 1. Meet Form 843, demystifying the IRS claim for refund. Let's just leave all that confusing bureaucratic jargon right at the door.
If the IRS has hit you with a penalty, there is one specific piece of paper that acts as your key to resolving it, and that is Form 843. Now, officially, the IRS calls this a claim for refund and request for abatement, but in plain English, it's simply how you formally ask the IRS to wipe out a penalty they've charged you or to refund one that you've already paid. Think of this form as your absolute lifeline.
And what's really great is that Form 843 is highly versatile. It works for the most common issues everyday people face: failure to file penalties, failure to pay penalties, and even some specific interest charges related to those exact penalties.
Step 2. Get your exact numbers and know what you owe before you start. The golden rule here is that before you fill out a single letter on that form, you need to know your exact numbers. You cannot guess, you cannot estimate. The IRS deals in precision, and so you have to as well.
To get that precision without doing the complex math yourself, you'll want to start with the free calculator at ustaxpenaltysaver.com. It simply asks for the basic amount of tax you owed. You just pop that in, and it runs all the math for you based directly on official IRS guidelines.
It spits out your exact failure to file penalty, failure to pay penalty, and interest down to the literal penny. Now you've got the precise numbers you actually need to fill out the form without second-guessing yourself. Moving on to Step 3, the 4 essential lines. These are the only parts of the one-page form you need to master. I know tax forms look overwhelming, but I want to introduce you to the rule of 4. There are really only 4 lines on this entire page that matter most. It is completely manageable.
Here they are, straight down the page. Line 1 is simply the tax year you're dealing with. Line 2 is the exact dollar amount to be abated. And remember, that exact figure comes straight from the calculator we just talked about. Line 4 is the Internal Revenue Code section, which, for the most common penalties, is just 6651. And finally, line 5B is literally just a box you check to indicate your specific type of tax. That's it.
Now, Step 4. Mastering line 7, your reasonable cause explanation. Now, what's really interesting about this section is that it's the make or break part of the entire form. Those 4 lines we just covered, that was the easy stuff. Line 7 is where the real work happens. This is your written explanation to the IRS. The absolute most crucial point here is understanding what works and what fails. And frankly, this is where most people get it wrong. If you write something like, "Hey, I forgot," or "I was just really busy," that is practically a guaranteed denial. To win this, you must meet the IRS's own standard, which is called reasonable cause. Which brings us to Step 5, the 4-factor framework, the IRM 20.1.1.3 standard. So, how do you actually prove reasonable cause? Well, you use the IRS's own internal rulebook against them. It's kind of an insider secret known as IRM 20.1.1.3. This is the exact framework the IRS uses when they read your Line 7 statement to decide if they're going to approve or deny your request.
This specific framework requires you to answer 4 very specific things. 1. What happened? 2. How exactly did that event prevent you from filing or paying on time? 3. You have to prove that you acted in good faith and exercised ordinary care despite whatever happened. And 4. What did you do to fix the situation the moment you were able to? You absolutely must hit all 4 of these factors perfectly.
Now, if you're sitting there thinking, "I have absolutely no idea how to write that legally," please don't worry. Instead of starting from a blank, intimidating page, there's a tool at ustaxpenaltysaver.com called the Reasonable Cause Wizard. You just fill in a few basic blanks about what happened to you, and the tool actually writes the matching Line 7 statement and reasonable cause letter for you, making sure it perfectly aligns with that IRM 20.1.1.3 framework we just talked about.
And finally, Step 6, your path to relief, generating your defense package. You've run your numbers, you've used the framework, now let's transform all that lingering anxiety into a solid, concrete action plan. When you use the tool, you get a completely done-for-you defense package. The IRS penalty calculation report it generates is incredibly clean, highly professional, and it breaks down your exact eligibility for relief, right there in black and white.
But it doesn't just hand you a form and say, good luck. The package gives you the exact IRS letter templates, and even word-for-word phone request scripts. It tells you the exact number to call, what you need to have ready, and literally what to say when an actual IRS agent picks up the line.
Finally, the package outlines exactly what happens next and the expected timelines, which totally removes the mystery. Now, will it work? Well, depending on your exact facts, you may or could qualify for this relief. The key takeaway here is that you are presenting your absolute best possible defense using their own rules.
Well, before we wrap up, I need to read this importantly and clearly. General information, not legal or tax advice. Consult a licensed professional. Form 84-3 is a public IRS document, and your individual situation dictates the outcome, so always consult a pro if you need specific advice.
And that brings us to our conclusion. You really don't have to face an IRS penalty completely in the dark. You now know the form, you know the 4 lines that matter, and you have the 4-factor framework to make your case. Your next step is incredibly simple. Start free at ustaxpenaltysaver.com to run your exact numbers and take back control today. Why let the IRS keep your money when a proven, stress-free framework is just a click away?